Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to TRRAIN Webinar 2. I feel privileged to host this webinar because I have, probably for the first time, all the heads of associations who are representing thousands and thousands of stores and restaurants and clothing manufacturers here with me. As of 8-9 minutes back, we already had 1,000 plus registrations, which we had opened for. And now we are open on live on YouTube. I'll keep informing you as to what the number of audiences actually coming on that. So let me introduce Anurag Katriar. Anurag heads the NRAI, the National Restaurant Association of India, representing 9,000 restaurants with about 7 lakh employees as part of the restaurants membership. Restaurant as an industry has 7.3 million employees, 73 lakhs. And out of that, the organized or the formal sector is close to about 3.7 million, 37 lakhs. So on this forum, we have a very large representation of the restaurant body. I am also having Mr. Rahul Mehta, the chief mentor of CMAI, with 3,700 members who have 7 lakh employees. The industry has 12 million employees, with the domestic sector having 7 million employees, that is 70 lakhs. Joins me along with Mr. Rahul Mehta and Anurag Katriar is Kumar Rajagopalan, the CEO of Retail Association of India. Retail has 46 million employees in total, out of which we have 6 million in the modern retail. The total number of outlets is 12 million, 1.2 crores. And RAI has a membership of 13,667 members with close to about 500,000 doors, which means half a million doors represented. So ladies and gentlemen, the three of the panelists who are there with me together represent 66 million Indians who work in the retail segment, 27,000 members, and with a close to 1 million employees directly employed with the members of these three associations. Welcome. And before I go on to questions that we have received, let me tell you, we received 194 questions as of today morning. Questions are pouring in. It's impossible for me to get answers of all the 194 questions. But what we will do is we have taken up a few buckets of questions and we'll try to answer them so that at least most of you will feel satisfied with the kind of answers that you have got. So let me start with Anurag. Anurag, what I have seen in the last 10 days is the government of India, led by the Prime Minister, has done a fantastic job. Compared to any other country, I think we went in for lockout much earlier. We also saw that the government machinery has been working extremely efficient with all of us. We've had meetings, we have had problems for which the solution was given, and we saw notifications and gadgets coming out in 20-30 minutes. It's amazing to see that everybody, the private and the public sector and the government working together and to ensure that 130 crore Indians are safe and are at home and we are able to supply them. Tell me, how has been the NRAI's experience in the last 2 to 3 weeks' time?
First of all, thank you. I think our experience has been fabulous with the way the government has been reacting, the way the government has been handling this whole COVID crisis. I think we have been led very exemplarily by the Prime Minister and his team. And that's probably the reason why our numbers are far better than some of the other countries who probably saw the first cases around the same time as us. As far as industry is concerned, I think we have the first flag we raised were more around human issues because, as you said, we employ 7 million plus people. And we were worried about their livelihoods. And we had sought certain deferments, which is happening. Some of them have happened, which is helping us at least live to fight another day.
Anurag, I'll come to you on that further, but tell me one thing. I saw that the moment this happened, the whole restaurant association got together. You actually started creating funds and you opened your kitchens. And somewhere I saw yesterday in the tweet that you were literally serving hundreds and thousands of meals, which means the kitchens which were meant for food for people who come into the restaurant suddenly opened up to the whole community. Let's talk about that for a few seconds.
Oh, yeah. We are very proud of that. Between the 4 cities, as of yesterday, in less than 2 weeks, we have served 1.2 million meals. That's roughly around 90,000 meals a day. And these are being served to the underprivileged ones. we are getting massive support. Again, we were talking about the government participation in the whole thing. We are getting very good support, both in terms of directing where the demands are. Also, whatever logistical issues we have, vis-a-vis movement of people, vehicle, food, everything has been done very, very well. And this is across 4 cities, comprising 5 different governments. Delhi NCR, we are dealing with Delhi and Haryana governments, Maharashtra for Mumbai, Karnataka, Bangalore, and Calcutta, West Bengal.
Fantastic.
And our experience with everyone has been exemplary. Our aim is to serve 10 million meals by the time this lockdown gets over. And this is all being done through public funding.
Excellent. Rahul bhai, you have seen many crises, but this is one crisis where you have seen the government interaction, you have been dealing with the textile ministry, you also dealt with the state government. Also, I think between the industry players, a lot of shift has happened to serve the community, whether it is making gas, making masks and things like that. Share with us the positivity of how the communities have got together, especially in the vertical that your association manages. Rahul bhai, you are muted.
Yeah, so hats off first of all to the industry members. They have all got together as a united entity. And as you said, we are distributing, we are first of all manufacturing masks in our factories wherever we have been permitted. We are trying to get into the protective gear manufacturing. We are distributing masks. We are helping to distribute free meals. Of course, not cooking them ourselves, but taking help of the restaurants and distributing meals to the needy. Some of our members have donated huge and massive amounts of their resources to the Prime Minister's Fund. So as an industry, we've got together. But in this, I must add the role played by our line ministry and particularly our Minister of Textiles, Srimati Smriti Irani. It is almost unbelievable. She came on video to appeal to all the international buyers not to cancel orders, to support the Indian exporters in these tough times. She spoke to our domestic industry to again reassure us that the ministry is standing shoulder to shoulder in this hour of crisis. She has had already about 2 or 3 webinars with the industry, trying to get ideas, trying to tell us what the ministry has been doing so far. So all this is giving a lot of a positive energy and a kind of motivation to our industry, especially the smaller manufacturers. So I think it's a tremendous partnership between government and private enterprise.
Yeah, before I go to Kumar, the reason I wanted to ask you this question is, this is what gives all of us hope. Many a times we feel that we are on the other end or we are on the receiving end, but the hope that we have is that, it's very clearly life, and now the call saying that it is from life to livelihood. So there is a very positive movement, and this also gives us the hope that even we, wherever we're sitting, can probably help somebody around us, that itself will have a huge community effect, like the way the industry has done. Kumar, what has been your experience, especially the fact that as part of the NRAI group, we have a very large number of supermarkets and food retailers, who are literally opening up the doors and serving people who are needy and who are hungry?
Yeah, I think the first thing that all of us do acknowledge is that the Prime Minister took action and took a very important action. And I know it's not easy to tell that a country of this size has to go on and get locked down at that rapid pace. But I think all of us, when we think back and think in terms of survival, we can't but appreciate the fact that we went through this and we are going through this. Along with that is also the fact that the clarity that various officials have had at various levels has been that we have got to do everything to get people to survive. And that is very obvious because when we talked about essentials, I think ab initio they said that essentials have to be available to citizens. The kind of partnerships that we've seen between the government authorities and our association, and therefore with the association members, could not have been imagined in an earlier phase at all, because they've been proactive, They have asked us to create groups. In fact, they've insisted that the association should create groups where we invite them to come on over. And every single question that is being asked by any of the members to take care of individual needs of any essential products is being answered to. I have not seen a single place across the various states in the country where we've got multiple groups available on WhatsApp, on various other groups, where the government official concerned does not answer. So I think there's a very high level of support to make sure that essential goods are available. There could be arguments to say that it's still not doing so well, but we are a very complex country. And at various points, there have been things that's been done on the one hand to take care of the social distancing, and at the same time to make sure that essential goods are available.
Yeah, Kumar, thank you very much. It's nice that you use the word survive. And therefore, my next question is to say, what is the impact that we see? And what is it that would require for each of the industries to survive? And therefore, what is our ask from the government? These are the three questions put together, Anurag, with you. What is the impact? What is it that will make us survive this 6 weeks? And what is it that you have as an association asked from the government?
So, in terms of impact, I think we are one of those who have been hit very badly for two reasons. All of us have zero revenues pretty much across the board. Some retailers may not have it, but we virtually have zero revenues, though deliveries are allowed in bits and pieces. In our business, typically the proportion of fixed operating expenses are very high, which means that when there is zero revenue, our loss is also very high. So right now, if I have to tell you the truth, we are fighting a battle for our mere survival. And since we don't know two very important aspects of this current situation, how long is this going to last? And what will be the ultimate damage it will cause, both in terms of human mortality and economic slowdown? We don't know how will it shape up in the future. What have we done in the interim was we were more worried about the human issues of art. I don't know if I ever mentioned this. NRAI gave a call to its members to shut operation a week before the Prime Minister announced the lockdown. And we did that purely bearing in mind the safety of our employees and guests. See, our guys travel on public transport. And then they mingle with people who are quote unquote better off than them in the restaurants. So not only do they run the risk of getting infected, they also run the risk of becoming huge carriers of the disease. So having said that, right now the human issues that what we are facing is how to pay salaries, to be honest, how to make sure that marginal suppliers are paid. And to that effect, what we had sought from the government initially was simply defer all the statutory payments so that they can be diverted towards these, what I call more urgent human needs. Now going forward, we have also sought for the same reason, another relief, which is to use the vast coffers of ESIC to partially pay off the guys who are at least covered under the ESIC Act. That will give us some place to breathe. On the third part of what do we need when we restart, it's a very tough one. I'll put it into two brackets. One is in terms of immediate support, whether it is by way of working capital, availability with probably no collaterals, rebate in everything, tax holiday. It'll be a massive stimulus package, and it will all depend on when do we come back to our feet. But on the other hand, there is another opportunity that I see where, certain policy changes which have been on the anvil for a while can be impacted right now. This is the time when we are all on the mode of, no work. This is the best time to implement those. That will benefit us in the long run and probably give us a better chance to come back on our feet.
Thank you, Anurag. I think, Rahul Bhai, if it's up to you, and you also represent not only the front-end retailers who are actually apparel retailing, but also the manufacturing companies. Yes, I think ESIC and deferring the statutory payments are fine. But you require probably much more than to pay the salaries because the revenues have become zero, like what Anurag said. Apart from the two asks that Anurag has, is there any new asks that you have from the government or from the authorities? So tell me, what is the impact? Tell me, how do you survive, and what do you need to go forward?
Well, I think essentially the asks would remain the same because there's not too much of a difference between our industries. But all I can say is that almost 80% of the entire garment industry falls under the MSME sector, and that also under the micro sector rather than the small or the medium sector. And therefore, the impact is that much more because our members do not have the kind of reserves or the resources to see them through a 3-month or a 6-month period of this magnitude. So the first thing, of course, is some form of a wage subsidy to enable us to retain our workers and to enable us to keep their fires burning, their families surviving. After that, I think it is a question of helping the industry to restart and a kind of incentive package for the industry. Because I firmly believe that whilst the government has taken the right steps as the first steps in trying to give money directly to the underprivileged of the society, the government cannot really continue just doling out money. Absolutely. The only way government can help the underprivileged is to enable the industry to help them to survive. So it is the government's role, I think, is going to shift to helping the industry to survive by giving them, as Anurag mentioned earlier, help on moratoriums, help on deferment of payment of taxes, help on the additional working capital at perhaps better terms. This is the only way industry can be assisted or helped so that in turn it can help the working class to survive.
So I'm going to go back to Anurag later on and ask the question. My one question to really look at the impact, if one does not see this happening, what would be the impact, Rahul? Is there a number in your mind?
Well, CMAI had done a survey amongst its members, and we had done an analysis of the 1,500 plus responses that we had got. And the responses were quite frightening. Almost 20% of the people asked had responded saying that they were thinking of closing down their businesses post the lifting of the lockdown. That's a huge number. Secondly, this at least 60% anticipated a drop in revenue to the tune of 40%. Again, that's a massive number if you look at the total employment in our industry. So we have estimated that if no assistance comes from the government, either by way of wage subsidy or by way of a revival package, there could be a loss of almost 1 crore of jobs in the entire textile chain. I'm not just referring to the garment industry, because if the garment industry closes down, so would the fabric supplying industry, so would the zipper industry, so would be the tags and label industry. So if you look at the entire textile sector, I personally see as much as a 1 crore loss of jobs if nothing is done by the government.
Okay, I'll come back to there is Kumar. Before I go on to you, we just got some information that post opening up of China in terms of the market, apparel garment retailing has seen a 59% negative, which means that although food and some of the businesses have revived, apparel is still at almost 50-60% down. So this is a serious challenge that we have to face, but the impact is very, very serious. Kumar, what do you see in terms of the current situation, the impact, the survival, and what is the ask that RAI has?
Yeah, I think just like Rahul Bhai said, the first part is about what do members feel and what's their confidence level going forward. And there we had also done a survey, and we do know that about 25% of them said that if they do not get any support, they may need to wind down. And if we have to multiply it with the number of people, many of them are almost 50% of the very small retailers landed themselves into a situation wherein they said, maybe I will not be able to take care of my stores at all. I will not be able to open up. If that's where it is, if marginal and smaller businesses get shut down, it has much bigger impact, because I think the number of employees who's going to get out is going to be big. Plus, because, I mean, as you rightly said at the start, that it's a multiplier effect, I think all the allied industries also gets itself into a situation. And your own statement about the way in which the garment sector is going to go through, and I kind of resonate with what Rahul Bhai says there, is that it's going to be larger impact. So when you say ask from the government, I'll actually like to put it the other way around. I don't think it should be seen as an ask. Currently, we should be looking at it from the point of view of where do we want to make things happen. It's what does the industry give? I think that's where one should look at it as. Today, it's an employment industry. Today, it's a fact that this industry is going to go through issues. Now, if it's an employment filled industry, if it's going to go through issues, employers want to retain their talent, and they are looking for some kind of a support, some kind of encouragement to make sure that the talent is retained. I think it's about support. I will not call it an ask at all. And the supports are of only two kinds, like what everybody is saying. One support is for making sure that the finance comes in. But there, I think the government is, I mean, Reserve Bank of India has done something to try and create moratorium. But you know what? The industry has got lots of alternative instruments of financing, and that needs support. I mean, a significant number of garment retailers have got bill of exchange, which has been accepted, and those are all things that needs to be paid for to the members of Rahul Mehta's members. Now, there will need support. So that's where things go.
So I think if I sum up the three of you, the impact is massive. I mean, in terms of the industry, the impact could be between 20, 30, 40%. We don't know. But the impact is massive. And because this industry has tremendous multiplier effect, both in the backward of the supply chain and the forward of supply chain, from consumer to retail and retail to right up to manufacturing, 20 to 30% is a very, very large impact. But I think there are two very clear asks. And for those of you who are watching this and you are retailers and you're manufacturers, I think the industry, and especially all three of you put together, is very clearly saying, help us ensure that we are able to pay the salaries and retain people, because ours is a business which when we open doors, we collect cash. We don't open doors, we have no other option. That's one. I think second thing that I really like about is the thing that you're not asking for a dole, but you're saying facilitate in helping us get working capital. We require working capital. Maybe the government needs to subsidize the interest, but if the banks and the financial institutions and RBI opens up the working capital, we as businessmen have the ability to fight this situation and survive. Maybe you give us a longer moratorium. Okay, don't ask to pay it back in 6 months or 1 year. Maybe a longer moratorium. Stretch the money, give us the funds, have confidence in our ability. We should be able to take it forward, but we definitely require this help. Anurag, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, you know what? I think I'll pick up from what Kumar was saying a little while back. It's not really a dole. What are we saying in very clear terms is this: the industry will collapse in a very big way if nothing comes our way. What we are seeking are tools which are like ventilators to keep us alive, and maybe we will see a reversal where we'll be alive to fight another battle. And I think to that extent, a very clear-cut thing, if I have to look at it probably from a management perspective, in the post-COVID era, every relationship will need to be redefined, whether it is between us and the government, us and, say, a landlord, us and, say, an aggregator. All needs to be redefined, because this game cannot be played with the old rules in the post-COVID era. As simple as that. And to that extent, I think government has to think of us as partners and nothing else. Now, if you take, for example, I mean, I'll take the argument a little further. If we are seeking to move to say, a rev share model with the malls, the government also needs to come to the rescue of the malls and say, okay, fine, guys, your property tax or XYZ will be taken care in some way or the other. But eventually, if they are the MyBab, they are the biggest stakeholders as tax collector in the ecosystem, they need to play ball on this one.
Yeah, Kumar, you had something.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to extend on what Anurag was saying, is that there are also some low-hanging fruits that the government can really immediately take an action on, right? The low-hanging fruit are, how do we create ease of doing business to an extent wherein it's frictionless? And some parts of it are like, property tax with the malls. Now, property tax, does it really make sense to charge property tax for this period? Two are licenses. Isn't anymore a time when you should have licenses getting renewed year after year? Can we make it that you can apply for a license for 5 years at a time? to make it frictionless. Similarly, this whole minimum charges for electricity that is there, which the malls have to pay, which in effect goes back to the retailer. Is there something that we can do if there was no electricity to be used at all, and not because we did not want to use it, but because we could not use it? Now, do we need to still pay the minimum electricity charges? Now, these are all things that will solve this whole friction. Otherwise, there is going to be a whole lot of, I would call it as business friction, that is also not going to be very good. I think the government has to think about where could the frictions be when we have this multiplier effect.
So Kumar, like you said, there are phases in which we have to work out. I think today we are talking of the survival phase. When we go from survival to the recovery phase, and of course the revive phase or thrive phase, I think between the survival and the recovery, the government has to really look at that. But let me go on to some specific questions which has come from the audience. And it's a very straight question. He's saying, boss, there's no cash. And we don't know whether we'll get a support. What do I do? Anybody has an answer? Kumar, go ahead.
I actually had a member call me up today in the morning, and he said that, listen, I have to pay my salary. I have zero cash currently. I don't have a loan account at all. Now, how do I make the payment? So I asked him whether he's capable of raising loans. He said, yeah, maybe I can. So the only question I had with me was, is that a talent that you want to retain to pay the salary? If you think the talent has to be retained, then you will do whatever you can to keep that person with you. If you don't think it's worth retaining, and I worry that this is going to be the way every businessman is going to think. He is going to think, am I going to want to go out of my way to retain a person, or am I going to let go of the person? I mean, I asked him, "Aapke ghar pe kaun kaam karta hai?" So he said, there are so many people. I asked, did you let them go when they did not come? He said, no, I paid for them. So I think this is where we have to think.
So in fact, there's one more suggestion which has actually come from somebody when I was talking in the last 2-3 weeks is, at this point of time, is there a way that you can look at some of your employees or high-paid employees also as part of the whole group, okay, who will help you survive and recover and then revive? And therefore, instead of saying that there will be a salary cut, can some of the salary cut be converted into equity? If there are large companies, if there are smaller companies, can they be converted into variables? And if there are individual entrepreneurs, that can you make it as profit sharing? Maybe not this year, next year when you actually revive. I think some of these suggestions are coming, but the solution is if you don't get any help from the government, and we are all hoping with the proactiveness of the government, you will get their help, okay, and you don't have cash, and especially all the businesses we are talking don't sit on cash, then the only way is you have to go and borrow in order to ensure that the organization survives. Anurag, you had a point.
Yeah, I mean, while we may have all the intents and no resources, I don't agree that borrowing is the right thing to do at this stage, because the future is anyway uncertain. Secondly, every borrowing will come at an interest, and that is only going to take your fixed expenses higher. My personal view is right now we need to look at it a little differently. It's no more a time to think of what is right and what is wrong. I think our responsibility as job providers is to ensure that the kitchen fires in every household of our employees are burning. And to that extent, I will use something called a word, if I can loosely use, called something to make sure it's like a sustenance allowance more than salary. If I'm able to pay somebody 10,000 today, I rather pay him 5,000 for 2 consecutive months so that he can last 2 months with his basic needs. At the same time, we have also written to the government to extend the benefit of PF withdrawal to up to 3 lakh rupees and up to 6 months, because eventually it's going to be a matter of cash flow. Please understand, the worst predicament that we are facing is if we let somebody go, he's not going to get a job in this market. Again, it's the same thing. So I think rather than being what I call legally correct or incorrect, I would look at it as a human problem, and human problem needs to be solved with humanitarian hands. And to me, as long as we can provide them bread and butter to survive every day, we are doing well. If you can't do that also, tough luck. There is only so much you can do.
Rahul bhai, you have any other solution? I mean, no money, no cash in hand. I don't get any help from government. What do I do?
Unfortunately, the only possible solution could be to close down. But that's not something that I would want to recommend to people. But I agree with Anurag, and this is what CMAI has given a set of guiding principles. I would rather give part salaries to all my staff by borrowing funds from the banks and at least help them keep surviving in this next few months. But even there, sir, I would like to share with you all the experience of a member of ours. He called up his bank to say that, look, I have got 3 lakhs of rupees in my account. I need to pay 5 lakhs as my monthly salary. Can you please allow me this overdraft of 2 lakhs and enable me to pay the salary? The bank said that, look, we will allow you overdraft. In any case, we are going to let you enjoy 10% additional working capital. So you are more than covered. But under our rules, we cannot use that to pay your workers' salaries. If you want us to pay a check to your fabric supplier, we will be happy to do so. I can't understand this logic. I would say that to pay my workers' salary should be given the first priority. So, you know, people will have to work together in this. My own submission is, which I would want to elaborate a little later. We will not be able to survive as an industry unless we take a collaborative approach. And whether it is collaboration between malls and retailers and manufacturers and the suppliers, and the external environment of the banking system. We have to collaborate. That's the only way we can survive.
And also, Rahul, because we are talking to the association lead, it could be also collaborating between retailers and retailers.
Correct.
And with the association to take it forward. So
yes.
This thing that you mentioned, if it can be actually put across to the finance ministry to say working capital in the banking is defined as only material and not men, okay, there could be a serious issue there.
Yeah.
There are a lot of questions, so I'll keep coming back with questions. Kumar and Anurag, I know you're raising your fingers.
No, I just want to give one more alternative for this whole finance issue. If it doesn't work and people think that I did not get loan, I am not able to then survive because the government is not coming in. One more method is for everybody to start thinking who could be that person that I could tie up with, who would be willing to kind of back me up to finance and take things forward. I mean, it may actually call for going to your competitor to also come in and ask whether you are coming to go with me to make things happen. It might happen. So I'm saying, please gulp your ego and go out in the market and see what the other alliances can be. Because as a businessman, you can't afford to have an ego at all, at least at this stage.
So, like I said, there are 3 or 4 areas that most of the questions are coming from. One is coming from anxiety and fear, okay, because of uncertainty. Yeah, the government is communicating hell of a lot with the countrymen, but on the economic package and business packages, I think they're still to hear from the government. So there's a lot of anxiety and fear. And second is, of course, the hope. So a lot of people have asked the question, since all of you are managing such large businesses and large associations, what, as per you, could be the revival time whenever this locked out situation comes out? And can I request you to be keeping it short, just in terms of months, if you 3 of you can just talk about it, we'll get a sense of it.
9 to 12
Anurag?
months.
9 to 12 months, Rahul Mehta. Anurag?
Oh, similar time, if at all.
Kumar?
Yeah, here the assessment came back with the larger guys said it's 6 months. The smaller retailers said it could be as much as 12 months. So that feedback had come in from the members, right? So that's where it is.
I think for the audience who are here, okay, I know that you're anxious. I know that there is a fear, and I know that you're wanting to get hopes from the government. Okay, the government cannot run the businesses for the next 9 to 12 months.
Absolutely.
Okay, the government can support you for 1 month, 2 months, and 3 months. So it is important for each one of you sitting at home, either with your friends and family, or your business people who are connecting on Zoom or WhatsApp call, to start looking at saying, if I have to stretch this situation with a minus 30% or 40% or 50% of business happening, how do I survive? So you will have to make a survival plan. It's almost like a housewife saying, जब 10,000 का खर्चा अगर मुझे 5,000 मिलेगा तो कौन सा सब्जी रखूंगी, कौन सा फल रखूंगी, क्या लूंगी, क्या दाल चावल नहीं लूंगी. I think this is extremely important. Just one more suggestion which came, I don't know how far it is. Yes, I know that there is short of money, but there is a possibility that Indians save a lot. Maybe your set of employees have saved. Okay, if they put it in the fixed deposit, they get 6%. But if they give it back to the business as a loan at maybe 6% or 7%, suddenly you may have a new set of lenders who will come in. This is like, if you are 6 brothers and running the business, won't you all pull together to make it happen? I mean, these are opportunities where people are looking and having some lateral thinking, and therefore it's important. So for the audience, it looks like a 9 to 12 months to recover. Although those of you listening to Mr. Sanjeev of HUL yesterday, he said there could be a possibility of a V-shaped recovery, because after all calamities in the last 50, 60, 100 years, we have seen a V recovery, which means that this happens and in 3 months' time you recover and take it on. There could be a U-shaped recovery. We don't know about it. There could be an L-shaped recovery. We don't know. But let's be positive to say if there's a V-shaped recovery in 9 to 12 months' time, how do we really recover and take it on? Another question which has come, and maybe all three of you can say, in this, if we have to use and change our strategy to sell, there is a e-commerce available, there are marketplaces available, there are online available, and Anurag, there's a delivery platform available, and there are dark kitchens. So if the three of you can spend time saying in this environment, and this is coming from a small to medium retailer, what would be the suggestion for you to look at alternate methods of selling? Anurag, I want to go with you first.
So I think whether we are talking about QSRs, dark kitchens, or restaurants, I think one thing we all need to do is change our method of communication. For the time being, once we restart post-COVID, I think we need to change our communication from product-driven to environment-driven. When I say environment-driven, this is more to do with hygiene. You need to assure your customers that, guys, you're coming to a place which takes care of everything, which is, whether it's social distancing, using sanitizers, or, having all kinds of checks and balances for egress of men and material. I think that is number one. Number two, I think in terms of survival, delivery business, while it is growing, but for all mainstream companies, it's not a very massive part of their portfolio, other than, players like Domino's and McDonald's. It's not a very massive part. So it's not going to change. And even there, if you look at the unit level economics, it's not very, very great. It's not very, very great. It's not that, people like, certain large players are having a profit-led growth. It's a volume-led growth. So I think from that perspective, we are in for some tough times. I don't see a revival. What will happen in the immediate term, what will happen? Social distancing will ensure that people who used to like going to a crowded place like a bar and a pub will not step out. And recession, if it hits, will ensure that people who had discretionary expenses will take care of it. And remember, our industry, whether we are doing a food delivery or a restaurant, it is largely fed by discretionary expense.
Oh yeah, Kumar, you all did, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, you released a paper on how hygiene and safety standards have to be built within the retail industry. And he's absolutely right. I mean, this is a new way of working. I mean, we'll have to really move from our current standard of Chalta Hai to the best of standard in the world. Is there any one or two top lines that you've got out of the hygiene safety standard? Can it be made available to the large public, whether member or non-member of retail association?
Yeah, I think the thing has been the whole standards have come out from various HR heads of all the retail companies coming together. And they said, if this is where we are going towards, when we do open up, what will make sense? So they looked at it from the point of view of how do we make sure that consumers feel protected on the one hand, and on the other hand, how do we make sure that our own people plus the entire supply chain is feeling protected? So the various standards have come from all these aspects of social distancing and the ability to make sure that there is an assured service without there being a worry of whether or not I'm going to land up into a COVID situation. Various aspects, I don't want to get into too many details there, but it's gone through huge amount of detailing from a supply chain angle, from the point of view of how do you keep your store, how do employees travel, how do you ensure that the people who are coming in as consumers are feeling nice. I think this is where we really work. Also, the ability to start thinking about how to queue people. That's the other thing that we worked on yesterday. How do you make sure that there are time slots for customers to shop? Yesterday in our malls group, we said, are there places where the congregation is too high, and can you create something for that part so that that congregation area of the mall is not being seen? Business happens, but no congregation happens.
Yeah. So basically, three learnings. Rahul bhai, how do you see? One is, I think most people will be wearing masks. Second is everybody has to use sanitizer, and then there has to be queuing and social distancing. Rahul bhai, anything else? I mean, somebody asked me a question here to say, I mean, will people try garments at all?
Yeah, I think I would say two things, and in this probably I have a contrarian view to a lot of my colleagues and members. I feel that as soon as the stores and malls open, I think your first priority should be to encash your inventory. So I feel that there is a view that you should not give discounts, USS should be postponed, etc. I believe that to the individual manufacturer, the most important thing and the most immediate thing should be to encash my inventory. So get rid of your inventory as quickly as possible as a first step. But after that, I think the businesses will have to rethink their business strategy. This whole volume-driven business strategy that many of us in the garment industry have adopted, I think will need to be re-looked at. We need to go back to the banya style of working. कि भाई आज शाम को मैं कितना पैसा घर पे लेके गया. I think that is something that we will need to re-look at and rethink about shaping our businesses. And third, I think we'll also need to re-look at the scale of our operations. We were having a directors meeting in my own group, and one of the directors said, Rahul, I started in 1973 with 25 machines. Maybe the time has come to go back to that kind of scale. Now we are talking about a group which has probably over 15 or 2,000 to 2,500 machines. So we are the principle of it is let's relook at the scale, let's relook at our profitability, and relook at the kind of products that we are and the kind of pricing policies that we are having.
Rahul Mehta, you're absolutely right. In fact, one of the things that has come up as a learning is cash has become king. And therefore, everybody has to relook at their business model to say that every quarter, every year, you make some money or you keep some cash, because at this point of time, in a growing economy like India, we all were chasing growth. So every pie in the equity was put for growth. Every earnings were put for growth. And all of us have stretched our debt equity because we borrowed to put it for growth. And growth is good for the economy. We want it to be a $5 trillion economy. But I think it is important to start looking at saying we need to have cash in order to manage. But Rahul bhai, you not answered my question that somebody is asked to say what, because of the fear of catching the COVID-19, people don't want to try garments. Okay, what do? What does a retailer do?
I think in the long run, there is simply no question that consumers are going to shift more and more towards online purchasing. I'm using my own personal experience. I was very uncomfortable with online transactions. Today, I've become comfortable with that. So I think that factor is going to play a role. About your fear of trying on garments, I think it will last for a few months. But not beyond that, because I think the sheer excitement of visiting a store, visiting a mall, trying on garments, touching, feeling them, I think that's not going to die out very quickly. So I would say, yes, it will take some time before consumers feel confident and comfortable trying on clothes. But afterwards, I think things will come back to normal. But in this case, Mr. Nagesh, I would draw your attention to our efforts, which CMAI, as you know, is undertaking with the government, of coming up with a standard Indian size. Now, if you have a standard Indian size, then the consumer knows that when he goes to a Shoppers Stop or a Big Bazaar or whatever, and his size is M, he doesn't need to try on those clothes. He knows that he will buy that size M and he can go home comfortably. Of course, it has to be backed up with a retailer assurance that pieces would be exchanged in case.
I really hope and wish, Rahul bhai, that this project really comes through fast, because then everybody will know the size and they don't have to actually try out. There's two more questions related to apparel, so I'll go to you before I go to the others. One is to say what will happen to exports. Okay, and I think looks like he's an exporter, maybe a small or medium exporter. The second question is to say that why should we import? Can all of us as Indians and all retailers actually place our orders only on Indian manufacturers? And a follow-up, there's one more question to say, let's stop buying from all the countries. There's many specific countries also, I don't want to take the names, but stop importing, let's give our orders only to Indian manufacturers. And what happens to exports?
Well, your first question about exports, I think right now there is definitely going to be a major impact with all retailers also across the world facing the same lockdown situation as our retailers in India are facing. And therefore, they have taken the safe way out by simply cancelling all pending orders. I don't think their governments, the federations, the associations will permit a kind of a blind cancellation of all orders, but there is going to be an impact. But in the long run, I see the current situation as an opportunity for Indian exporters, because I think across the globe, retailers and brands are going to rethink about placing all their bets into one country, and they are going to spread their sourcing markets. So India has got a unique opportunity to increase their market share in exports. But it will mean that exporters will need to relook at their product baskets. People keep talking about expanding the market base. I think in any case, US and EU compromise about 65% of the world trade. So you can't really go beyond, too much beyond that. But what you need to go get into are products other than the cotton casual wear, shirts and blouses that we are specializing in. 60 to 70% of our exports comprises of that particular product category. We need to move away from that. We need to get into polyester-based garments. We need to get into performance garments, technical textiles, woolens and winter wear. Only then we will be able to come out in the long run. So that's the opportunity that I'm seeing.
So Rahul bhai, sorry, I'm going to take more time from you because there is a follow-up question. If somebody has the money and the resources, okay, should he be setting up a business or factory or extending his current garmenting factory into these opportunities, which is technical textiles on health and wellness areas and sports and fitness areas?
I would very, very strongly recommend that. To give a short answer.
There's hope, and yes. And you know, there's somebody else who asked as a fear. I don't know how to answer this. He said, will this lead to the bigger retailers eating up the smaller retailers or ruining the smaller retailers? Now, as somebody who's been part of the industry, let me tell this gentleman who has asked the question, because the bigger the retailer, the bigger the trouble he is in. So it is not that the bigger retailers, because they're supposed to be big, you know, I mean, they're much bigger bets and they're having as much as a serious cash flow. So be rest assured.
Yeah. Frankly, Mr. Nagesh, I agree. I don't think today is the time to look at big or small. All of us are in a soup and all of us have to help each other to try and get out of it. But to come back to your second question about imports, I think here is an opportunity. And once again, the Indian retailers can play a very important role because we've analyzed the import statistics into the country. The maximum imports are being done by the Indian retailers, especially those who have connection with international brands. I think there should be pressure. I don't think the government can put any legal or formal pressure, but it is already attempting, and I think we as citizens must put this moral pressure to try and say, look, let us know, let the Indian manufacturer know what we want, at what price levels, and I'm sure we can sit down together and work out a solution whereby our dependence on imports go down. I think to ban imports, to think of zero imports is a bit of a myth. I don't think, because we don't have all the kind of fabrics and raw materials, but we can certainly move towards that.
So Anurag, I want to ask you a question on working capital related. What is the kind of inventory or working capital that the restaurant industry holds? Is it in weeks or months, or are there some items which they import which sometimes they hold it in months?
You know, unfortunately, unlike Rahul, we don't have products which are unperishable. We deal with mostly the perishable products, and most of the food products have probably already been depleted, or they are before we shut down, or they have gone waste. Even with alcohol, lots of things like, beers and all, which are through the tap, they're all going waste. So we are not really sitting with any inventory to answer your questions, because ours is very perishable in nature.
No, I was also asking Anurag, is there a new model which can emerge, where literally the working capital cycle can be reduced? Because when we were looking yesterday, today an Indian jeweler has almost a year of inventory and the payables are 6 months. If you look at an apparel industry, it has 6 months of inventory and the payables in 60 days time. If you have to cut down the working capital, are there methods so that at least people who are on this call can think about how to really cut down the working capital going forward?
So Nagesh, just to answer that, since we deal with perishables, our inventory is never more than a couple of weeks, ever. Unless, you are dealing with lots of wines which are imported and they come with some minimum order quantity. We are not sitting with too much of inventory. Our working capital needs are not as big as, say, a manufacturing or something.
Yeah. Kumar,
sorry,
yes, Rahul Mehta. Yes, go ahead.
No, just on a lighter note, a rejoinder to Anurag. It is often said that fashion is more perishable than a cooked biryani. So I don't think we can.
And on the same lighter note, if in a locked-in situation you have wine, the wine will mature and maybe we'll get a higher price for that, provided you get the customers there. Now, Kumar, I just want to go into next question, which is actually talking about how can the industry associations work together? Now, this is the first time, or I don't know, we are talking of 3 associations working together, okay? Not from a problem mode, from a solution mode. Since 3 of you are there, can you do some quick thinking to say how the 3 of you can work together? Are there some synergies? Are there some learnings that we can get from each other and help, which is a possibility? Because this challenge is a big challenge.
Yeah, I think that's a very nice question. And again, it was one of the businessmen who actually propped it up again about 4 days back. And he said, why should I be a member with RAI as well as with some other association? And the only thing I told him was that, listen, you might be able to get some parts of your issue sorted with one and some could be associated with somebody else. But the fact is that even amongst associations, there is a need to really work closely with each other to work towards a common fructification. For example, if you ask any association today, the issues are going to be working capital and retention of people. I don't think any association is going into a situation wherein they say these 2 are not important. So there is a whole lot that comes in together, and it's not about one-upmanship, because end of the day, every association makes sure that we are able to take care of an industry. And there many of us, I do know Rahul is a member with RAI, Anurag is a member with RAI. That's the way it works. So I think it's about using each other's resources to make the similar kind of a context happen. Yesterday we worked with a whole lot of we worked with an association that is taking care of the malls in the country who are also members with RAI. Again, the same thing happened there. I think it's about collaborating, correlating, trying to make the same kind of, let's say, benchmarks to make sure that we are able to come out of this problem.
So Kumar, because something happened during this, and that's why the question was, when the food supermarkets were short of manpower, the non-food retailers and organizations, actually offered their employees, and on the retail RAI, we had 15,000 employee names available to be hired by the food retailers. So I know that there will be job losses, but if the associations work together, if the Swiggies and the Zomatos require more people, are there ways where we all can work together and somebody's job loss can be created a job opportunity for somebody else? Yeah. And I have a follow-up question. Looks like it has come from either a college or it says that will students have internship opportunities, because India produces a large number of graduates and MBAs, and summer is the time when they have to go for the internship. Okay, now that's one question. The second question which has come up is that is there a way that we can get the migrant laborers back? So these are 2 people who probably are already thinking of the recovery stage. Okay, and they are saying if I recover, I won't get manpower. So Anurag, we'll start with you, because you anyhow use a lot of students for your catering businesses. So will there be a opportunity for students, and how do we get the migrant workers back? Is there a way we can work with the migrant workers?
So as far as summer trainees are concerned, internships are concerned, I don't think that will be very hugely impacted. We all need people, and it's a great way to build, inventory within your human inventory in your business. As far as getting migrant laborers are concerned, that is going to be a bit of a challenge now. And I'll tell you why. Because if the businesses in the post-COVID era are going to be 40-50% lesser than what they have all been so far, then there are only two ways to deal with your employees. Either you have lesser number of people or you have people at lesser salaries. And in both the cases, the migrant laborers are at a disadvantage. If I need lesser people, I rather work with locals. And if I need people at lesser salary, then these people cannot survive in a large city like a Mumbai or a Delhi with lesser incomes. So I think while we will love to have them back in our system, I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge unless the post-COVID era negativities go away very fast.
Kumar, you have some thoughts?
I think it's not one size fits all. It's going to be different for different industries. And in some, I don't think as an employer you really look at migrant or non-migrant. I think they look at it from talent or not talented. And with most of the employers, I think it's going to be who are those talented people whom I'm going to retain, who are those not so talented whom I'm willing to let go. That is where the whole thing is going to be. It's going to really start. People are going to use a sieve, and that sieve is going to do things differently.
Here it is. I think the question is not related to the 10% or 15% head office staff. 90% of the people that we have is the front.
No, even the front end. Even the front end. In fact, I had a very nice discussion with somebody who was sitting in Assam, and he himself was saying, "Listen, this is going to be the time when I'm going to look at all my people. I don't care where they came from, and I'm going to see how productive have they been." I think that is the yardstick.
So Rahul bhai, I want to move a little bit out from the government, the retailers, and just go into manufacturing for some time, because out of 12 million, you have a very large number of people who are in the manufacturing side. What do you see happening there? Because that's also a huge number of, if that doesn't produce, we can't sell. Because a lot of us are saying that if we finish off our current inventory sitting over the next 3 months' time, because the factories were closed, we will not get material for the September to December in the season, because nobody is producing as of today. So what is the thought there? Because government retailers have to start thinking, do I sell clear off and get cash? Do I hold and sell it at a full price and extend my period with inventory so that when I have to get fresh inventory, I am not at a problematic stage?
Well, I think I don't see actual manufacturing commencing for another 2 to 3 months, except for completing the work in process. Because you're absolutely right. I think most retailers are going to be hesitating to place fresh orders till perhaps the festive season. So I see that production, fresh production, starting only probably in the months of July or August of this year. So that's one part of it. But I would, from the manufacturing perspective, I think what has often been completely disregarded so far in our industry is the concept of productivity. And I think our manufacturers will have to now focus on improving and increasing productivity of its labor force, perhaps employ less number of people, perhaps going for more higher levels of technology, and increase your number of pieces produced per day per machine. So I think that's going to be the biggest shift that I see taking place in the manufacturing sector.
Thank you. Before we close the session, I would like to sum up of some of the pointers that have come out of our discussions. And one thing which has come out very clear is all of us are representing industry which has a multiplier effect, which means that if the retail gets closed, it has a huge downstream impact and an upstream impact. I think that's very, very clear. Not only within the value chain, but even outside, it has huge impact, including somebody like a valet who actually parks the car outside. Okay, if you are in this kind of a business. What is the extent of impact? Very clearly, it is being stated between 20% to 30%. I would say it's looking like more towards 30 to 35%. So those of you who are on this call, you have to imagine your business. Okay, hopefully I am wrong and we are all wrong, and I pray that we are all wrong. Okay, that your business will be down by 30, 35% or 40%. So would you be able to run the business minus 40% with 100% employment? Okay, would you be able to look at everything being cost being 100%? No. So you will have to relook at changing cost structure. And like many of us panelists said, productivity is extremely important. Okay, if 10 people were producing 20 garments, they have to produce 30. There is no other way. And therefore, to me, I think there's absolutely no option then job losses will happen. The job losses will happen either because of desperation or the business not being there or because of productivity gain. So those of you who are probably employees sitting here and watching this, I mean, you better skill yourself. And yesterday again, HUL chairman said, guys, use this time to skill yourself, develop new skills so that you can really make a difference. What is the ask from the government? I think it's come out very clear from all three of you, and I must thank you for that. Please first help us tide over these 3 months to survive. And for survival, we require 2 things very clearly. Okay, one is we require support to pay the salaries and retain employees or actually manage that. That's number 1. Number 2 is we're not looking for dole. Help us with working capital. Give us help so we can borrow money, draw money, and actually help the business survive. Yeah, there are 3rd and 4th things in terms of ease of business and all, but these 2 looks like very, very clear. The second thing which has come is that food is different from discretionary. Okay, I am seeing government is putting everything into one basket. No, the behavior for food will be very different and for discretion will be very, very different. So therefore, this is extremely, extremely important. What is the solution to tide over the situation? I think the solution is very clear. Assess your business as of today. Think of the next 9 to 12 months and redo your business plan. At least you know ki kitne pani mein ho. Yeah, because without that, not assessing your business and think that the God is going to come and help us out. I mean, too many people are asking for God to come, and God also must be very busy. Maybe he or she will not be able to come to all the doors. So I think we have to be very, very careful. What can the associations do is another question which we came up. I think there is a lot of opportunity for working together. And the reason of bringing this together is you're not hearing one voice. You're hearing 3 voices, but representing more than 1 million employees and more than 500,000 doors or stores or restaurants, which is very, very important. What should the entrepreneurs look at it? The reason that you are businessmen and entrepreneurs, you have a responsibility towards your customers and employees and suppliers. So this is not the time when you can say, Bahar se kuch hua, apply force majeure and run away to Himalayas. No, we have to face the situation. And I think our members have said, look at every avenue. Taking loans from your employees, usme kya bura hai? Okay, or taking loan from somebody else, or taking the help of the government. Yeah. Before I conclude, I just want to leave one thought. If you think on behalf of the government, I'm coming to you, Kumar. If you think on behalf of the government, anything that they will have to do, they'll have to do through using the current mechanisms of DBTs, okay, and the DBT mechanism. So any mechanism will happen through a proper channel, and the channel has to be the GST or income tax or taxes or the Aadhaar card or the UPI payments or the payment mechanism or your bank relationship. So please keep these things in order so that if tomorrow the government wants to do something, you are recognizable. Because if you're not recognizable and identifiable, either through ESI, PF, Aadhaar, any of these means, even if the government wants to give you, there is no way somebody will come with a briefcase of cash and give it to you in your hands. Yeah. So this is not going to happen. Yeah. Before I close, I just want to give maybe 30 seconds to each panelist if they want to have a closing comment, and then I will close the call accordingly. Go ahead, Kumar.
Yeah, I in fact wanted to ask you, since you've already told what do you expect from various people, all of us are consumption-led businesses. So if you have to look at it and say, what would you advise the consumers for them to come back and work with us? What would be that one thing that you will tell them? Because on the one hand, we are saying conserve cash. On the other hand, we want them to come and spend with us. What do you tell them?
Kumar, this is a wonderful question, and I must say that I have an answer for this. See, unfortunately, we all think that the value chain of business is ending at retailer and the consumer is on the other side of the table. No, in this hard time, the consumer has become part of the value chain. So I think the consumers have to support the economy to come back. So this is the time when you are saying, boss, let's go and spend. So maybe at some point, once we cross this whole stage of survival and we go into revival phase, I would like Prime Minister Mr. Modi to come forward and say, guys, for us to grow, for us to move forward, okay, the economy to bounce back, for us to reach the 5 trillion, all Indians will have to actually come together and actually spend money. Yeah, not only for essentials, but also for discretionary items. And we have to bring back the mood of saying, we fought it together and we won over COVID. So when you win over something, you celebrate. So I'm hoping that in that stage, in the next 3 months, we will reach a stage of celebrating the win over the virus and bringing India back into revival. Yeah, Rahul bhai, your last comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to leave a thought, since this is the first time that the three associations are sitting together. Do you think we could arrive at a common code of ethical transactions between retailers and its supply chain, whether in the food line or the apparel line, so that there is a kind of guiding set of principles for retailers as well as the manufacturers or supply chain to follow? If it can be done between RAI and CMAI and NRAI, I think it will be a fantastic step.
Yeah, it's a fab idea. So, the way I look at the problem right now is very simple. The future of the business is very unknown because of few unknown variables like the duration of the COVID and so on and so forth. So what do we need to do in the interim are two things. Make sure that people are not going hungry. To that effect, I think other than what we spoke about, there are a few other things. We spoke about DBT. We can also use PDS to distribute grains to these people so that their bread and butter is on. And, RBI can probably look at, giving some kind of moratorium on what I call retail banking, retail loan platforms like home, personal loans, because that will also reduce the pressure on the cash flows of the employees. And on the other hand, what we need to do is to make sure businesses are kept alive while we fight COVID as a nation. And to that effect, I think government needs to make sure that everything that can be done, whether it is to do with licensing, deferment of payments, or anything, to make sure that the businesses don't die in the interim, they need to keep it going. And if we are alive, we can fight another battle in the post-COVID era.
No. We all will be alive and will be kicking. And I'm very confident that as a country, we have the ability to come back.
Yes.
But thank you very much, gentlemen, all the three of you. Just for your information, we had 1,050 odd registration before we started. And as we are closing during the last 1 hour, we had close to 650 people who came on the YouTube in addition to the 1,050. And through the TRRAIN Circle channel that we have internal, we had another 300 employees. And these are associates at the front end who are listening to you. So in total, about 2,000 people, and I hope that we have been able to answer most of the questions. But if there is a string of comments and questions that happens on the channel, maybe we'll be able to answer. And look forward to maybe seeing you all again sometime on a panel like this. But thank you very much, Mr. Rahul Mehta. Thank you, Kumar Rajagopalan. And thank you, Anurag, for being with me. And I just want to inform everybody that TRRAIN as a charitable trust is willing to set up and is on the process of setting up a fund where we'll try to see if we can help those retail employees who are in distress over the next 3 to 4 months, where, like Anurag said, even if the basics can be supported, the trust will actually support. And we are going to set this up and appeal to see how we can get contribution from everybody. I think NRAI is also doing a similar thing. Clothing Manufacturers Association is doing a similar thing. This initiative of TRRAIN is supported by RAI. Thank you very much and all the best. Be safe, be happy, and let's enjoy what we have today and look forward to what we're going to get tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Social distancing pranam. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.